I want to touch on something that we mentioned that was kind of not up for discussion that we chatted about before we hit the record buttons, and that being, a rent investing strategy for businesses in commercial property. Love to hear you hash out for everybody a little bit of a rent vesting strategy for businesses in the commercial space.
Yeah, okay. All right. So maybe first I'll go over maybe of like the pros and cons of owning your own premise as a business owner. And then that'll like kind of lead into, okay, what are the negatives will kind of lead into the rent vesting one. So,
and we're talking like pros and cons of like you owning it in your SMFS or just owning it just
owning in general. The buying entity, like, well, the pro of buying a self-managed super fund is tax concessions, because you can put money in your super that's got a lower tax rate, and obviously when you get to the end and things like that. So there's a tax one, but I don't make decisions based on tax. For buying the business, the main pros are based on you basically locked into that location. So you don't have to worry about ever being kicked out and scrambling to try to find a new premise or anything like that. So you've got control on that. The other one is, and I kind of just alluded against it, is there are some tax concessions to owning yourself, because Mr. Taxman, and don't hold me to this, anyone, can fudge the numbers a little bit to make it a little bit more attractive for you going there. So they're the two big ones there. You can also do your own thing. You can do fit outs and do the value adds, and no one can tell you otherwise. So like, say you buy that warehouse and you do need more space, you can put a mezzanine there. So you can actually then, you don't have to actually expand at a later date. You've actually got it there internally, which will increase the value as well. And then the other one's obviously it's a capital growth play, as opposed to not buying a premise. You're getting the leverage, you're getting the capital growth, you're getting like an area, like a good area. The negatives is also the opposite of that. So you're also locked into that location. So if your business expands and you got to move on, you're kind of stuck there. Then you're leasing the property out, and you're in the same position as buying something anyway. So you're a bit more rigid there. The other thing is, where your business operates, not necessarily the best location in all of Australia or the best yield. So all of a sudden you're going, I'm buying a bloody big investment, like a huge amount of money into something, and you're not buying the best area that you can. It's kind of like going to buy shares and buying something just because the office tower's near you. Like, it's got nothing to do with it. So you might be losing out on capital growth or sacrificing something there. The other part of it is it might actually be a lower yield to where you'd actually buy. So like a lot of business owners in Sydney and Melbourne and that are buying something on like a 4% net yield. And this is going to go into your rent vesting type one. They could go buy an investment in, say, Brisbane or Perth and get a 6.5%, 7% net yield, and then use that rent to actually rent somewhere, I don't know, 50% larger than what they were currently getting. And then they've got flexibility. They can move on and they actually expand a bit easier, and they're not quite locked into it. So, we're only just casually spoken about this, but like rent vesting for commercial is still a thing. So you can still do that as well if you're a business owner. The risk with the business owner as well, and this is the one that I normally talk people out of it if I am having a strategy call with them, is you are putting all your eggs in one basket. You're putting, like, if your business starts struggling, you're then putting your commercial at risk as well. So you're going to lose on two fronts. You're not going to be able to pay your mortgage, and you're going to have a struggling business. At least if you've got your business is struggling, you can wind that up and get out of the lease and obviously pay penalties depending on what the guarantees and stuff are. At least you've still got the other one ticking along. So they're two separate entities, and that reduces the risk that way.
Yeah, I think business owners really need to do like the cost-benefit analysis of like, what location would you be buying at for your business versus another location that might be a different capital growth rate, different vacancy rate, different level of risk or not as risky, and then sort of weigh out like what's the opportunity cost between owning the property where you run the business versus like rent investing somewhere else, I guess.
Yeah, the asset type might dictate that as well. So like I said, if you live in an area and you want to open a coffee shop or a medical center or something like that, that's, you're kind of locked in. Owning that's really important because you need the security that you're not going to get kicked out. No one wants to start a business and get kicked out in 5 years' time and be like, well, that was a fun run. And I actually had a client who had that happen to him. He started a cafe, did really well, and he was on, I think it was a 3x3x3 or something like that. And he got to the end, and then the owner of the actual building kicked him out and just started his own cafe because he already had the foot traffic in the name and completely just wiped him out. Just got rid of all his hard work and profit because they had control of it as well. And so that's an example where buying your own premises is quite important. And he actually said that. He's like, I'll never run a business again where I don't own the property. So you do have scenarios like that.
Yeah, I could see that being really bad for like medical or something like that, right? Like that would really suck not owning that.
Imagine if you're a GP and you've just built a 10-year business of having all the clientele go to that GP clinic. People don't even realize half the time. Like if you change over and if you're a GP and you own that premise, so that's quite important.